Welcome to Beyond Six Figures, the podcast that helps business coaches to micro-niche, get noticed, and become fully booked. Learn from top industry leaders who've successfully taken their businesses and their lives beyond six figures. Get ready to level up your coaching business and make this world a better place, one business at a time. And now, here's your host, Ziv Raviv.
Welcome to Beyond Six Figures. Our guest today is Phil Masiello, four-time exit entrepreneur, three-time best-selling author, founder and CEO of Crunch Growth, revenue acceleration agency. With over 2 decades of hands-on experience in scaling e-commerce brands, Amazon strategies, and consumer-focused startups, Phil has built, scaled, and exited multiple companies. He's also the host of the show Crunching Your Growth on YouTube and E360 TV, bringing gritty, real-world insight into founding and scaling businesses. Phil joins us to share his battle-tested strategies for acquiring and retaining clients, elevating brand presence, and driving unstoppable revenue momentum. Hello, Phil. How are you?
Good. Hi. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
It's a pleasure. I always love connecting with workers that are helping others grow. A lot of time there's such an interesting overlap in the need in knowledge, in what works between marketing agencies and business coaches. The type of decisions that you make are the type of decisions that business coaches need to know how to make as well a lot of times. So tell me a little bit about, I know your history could be discussed in a longer period of time, but give us the short version of how did you get to Crunch Growth?
So I founded my first business when I was 27. I'll say this as quick as I can. I founded my first business when I was 27 years old, and it was a disaster. It wasn't good. It was a failure of leadership, a failure of process management. And I ran it for 3 years, and I'm not one to give up, but I finally had to say it wasn't working. So I sold that business and took whatever money I had left. And I moved I was in New York and I moved down to Maryland. And I went to graduate school in Maryland, only not because I felt like I needed more education, but I felt like I needed to think a little bit differently. And so the money I had left, I invested in a small retail chain that were specialty food stores. There were only 2 stores at the time and they wanted to grow. And so I got involved with them while I was in graduate school, and I helped that business grow. And we grew it to 12 stores in Washington, D.C., plus we had made a couple of acquisitions. And then we exited that business. It was really good. And there I really learned about how to raise capital, how to acquire customers, how to, advertise correctly, how to market, how to build your brand. And then I went from there and I built a small chain called the Daily Market, which were grab-and-go retail stores in Washington, D.C. And while we were doing that, it was the dawn of e-commerce. So we actually built one of the first food-focused e-commerce sites to go along with the stores. And it did quite well in the first year. We got scaled to about $1 million. But that was really the beginning of e-commerce. And it was things were a little bit easier then. If you had a great URL, and there wasn't a lot of SEO things happening. But the flaw was that the distribution model of UPS, FedEx, they weren't really ready at that time for handling. Nonetheless, we were successful in that first year, and we got acquired by a supermarket chain. And the reason they acquired us was because at that time, nobody knew anything about websites. They wanted to build their home delivery of food. And so I went to work for them for a couple of years while I was implementing that, changing everything for them. And then I built Raw Essentials, which was a skincare brand. And we used Shopping Channel as a launch pad, which was great, phenomenal. And what that really taught us was how to use video to tell a story to sell your product. And it's even more applicable today with the use of short form video, long form video, things like that. We ran that business for a number of years. We had a model who was involved, who was the spokesperson. She's the one who went on and was the face of the brand on the shopping channels here in Canada and abroad. And we were one of the first brands on the Amazon marketplace when Bezos opened up the marketplace to sellers in 2006. And we were also had our own website as well. So we were doing e-commerce sales. And then we sold that business several years later to a division of Johnson & Johnson. And then I founded a razor business. And Energizer was our partner in that. They owned Schick, Persona. They owned a bunch of razor companies. It's now called Edgewell. We had an exclusive on an American-made razor, which made us different than everybody else that was out there. And we did that for a few years, but everybody got into that business. Dollar Shave Club, Harry's, and the business just that category got so hot that we were just fielding offers constantly to buy the company. And I had other shareholders, and everybody decided that it would be better to sell. And so we did. And how I got into Crunch Growth directly leads from that, because Edgewell Energizer came to me afterwards and said, we don't know anything about direct to consumer. We sell to drugstores, supermarkets. We sell our products in retail. We don't know how to sell direct to consumer. We don't have websites that are direct to consumer. We sell to Amazon. We don't sell on Amazon. So can you help us with that? And I said, I would, sure. I'm not a consultant, but we'll do it. We'll do the actual work. They said, we don't want a consultant because we can't do it. We can't have somebody tell us how to do it. We need somebody to do it. So it was sort of a partnership that we formed, and we started doing it. And then after about a year and a half, I decided that, I don't want to just be tied to one client. So we started bringing in other clients. And that's how we got into Crunch Growth. And that was about 14 years ago. And since then, we do website development, Shopify, WooCommerce, Magento, most of the big ones, BigCommerce. And we also manage advertising across all platforms, including demand-side platforms and Amazon. And we do a lot of connected TV advertising. We do a lot of short-form video selling. So we understand, because of our experience with doing shopping channels, we understand how to use storytelling and video to sell products. So that's how we got there, and that's where we are sort of today.
So you went through having hands-on experience in 4 different types of industries, from skill care to selling food, delivery, online, and develop your overall expertise. Your companies were acquired throughout the journey, and that says something. And then eventually you got to the point where, through the partnership and through the offering done for you services, 14 years ago, you shifted into doing more and more done for you projects. And these days, you have a full stack as a marketing agency. How big is Crunch Growth?
In terms of number of people, or in terms
Yes.
of, we have 18 full-timers, 6 part-timers, and then probably 5 or 6 virtual assistants.
Love it. So these days you run the marketing activities for your clients together with your team, of course. And I want to ask you, what do you think about this concept that I think was voiced originally online by Gary Vee? He would say that every business needs to, at some point, consider themselves as a marketing business. They are in the business of marketing, actually. What do you think about that?
I think that that's exactly right. I mean, when you look at companies that were driven by marketers, they generally excel in performance. And I'm not just talking about small companies, I'm talking about big companies. Look at like a guy like Mickey Drexler, who ran fashion houses. He was a marketer. He understood how to market. When you start running a company by accountants or finance guys, they don't take risks, and they're not interested in the customer. They're interested in the bottom line and the flow of money. They tend to struggle and stumble. When you have companies that aren't marketers, they tend to, and there's a lot of them out there. We saw a flood of bankruptcies over the last couple of years in the United States with like Party City and Joanne Fabrics and things like this. But when you look at it, it had nothing to do with economics. It had everything to do with the fact that they were relevant 15, 20 years ago. But a marketer always stays on top of the customer. They always stay in one step ahead of where the customer is. Look at Apple. Apple is a marketing company. Steve Jobs was a marketer. Yes, they were great building technology, but it was led by marketing. So marketing-focused companies tend to do and perform better because they're focused on the customer, the end user, and delivering great value to customers.
You've been on both sides of the fence in a way, like you've done the focus on products and operations, and now you're more focused on the marketing and the strategy. These days, when you meet a potential client, if you see that their product is not as great as you want it to be, would you still take them and allow marketing to save them in a way, or do you have some boundaries that you form to take only great products?
That is an excellent question, and I'm glad you asked it, because one of the first things, we're very selective on who we take on as a client, because the first thing we want to know when we have a call is what makes you different than your competitors. Because if you're not different, it's very difficult for us to help you, right? Because what are we going to say? Our product is better than the competitors? I mean, that doesn't go a long way. It's really difficult to prove better. You can prove that you're different. So you want to be very, very different. But if we do take on clients who aren't different, but want to be different and have something there, and if they're receptive to listening to us and to having us help guide them, because we do have a lot of knowledge and we have been through the ringer, and we've helped over 200 companies scale with Crunch growth over the last 14 years, that we do know what we're talking about, and we're not putting you at risk. We're not going to burn through your money. I mean, if you call me up and say, Phil, I just want to run advertising and just talk about my product being better, I'm going to tell you we're not going to take you on as a client. I'm not going to waste your money, because that's our reputation is we're good at what we do, and we're good at scaling companies. So to your point, yeah, we have a very specific criteria. We don't take on everybody who comes to us. We don't need to grow that badly that we want to just take on as many clients as we possibly can. We take on the ones that we want to help, and we know we can help. And also they want the help. So, and there's a lot of clients that we have where the founders, maybe they were able to get from 0 to 5 or 0 to 10 million, and now they're stuck and they can't figure it out. They're great for us because we can figure it out. We can help you figure it out if you're willing to listen and go through the steps. And then I do coaching as well on a personal level. And I do a lot of coaching with some of these founders and et cetera. So we're very specific about what we want to do. We only deal with brands. We don't deal with people who just want to sell product. Selling product doesn't lead to longevity. Building a brand connects with customers and leads to longevity.
What would be your bare minimum of a brand that is on its early days? What would be the revenue, the annual revenue that will, or maybe it's something else that will be a criteria for you to help them and embrace them, bring them in, and help them with their marketing?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends on the industry, and it depends on how much capital they have. If they're strapped with capital, they don't have any money, and it's really difficult to help them because you do have to do things, even if you get micro influencers, you use social media, it still costs money, right? There's still work that has to go into building content and trying to get that content out of it. But usually our sweet spot is 5 to 10 million in annual sales, although we have gone below that with groups that are funded or well-funded, or even if it's a startup, but they've got good funding, we've helped them out tremendously. We have a couple of clients that started out at ground zero that we've helped, but they had funding, they had raised capital, and along the way, we were able to get them to their goals. A lot of it has to do with mindset. We have tried to help smaller brands because we do like that environment. We like young entrepreneurs. We like people who are trying to do things differently. And we had, for example, one group that came to us and they had some money. But they had a very clear point of difference. And we thought, here's the plan. We laid it out for them. And once we started, they didn't have the right mindset. They kept going back to doing what they always did. And we said, and these guys were in business for a long time. And we said, we can't keep working on this because you have a failure mindset. You're afraid to do anything. So
what I love about like some of the things you say between the lines, you actually choose your clients carefully in a way that you will actually provide value for them and you will actually succeed in your work. And as a result of being able to say no, you don't go through those long cycles of kicking a dead horse, right? Of trying to revive this business that is completely the same as everyone else, that doesn't have any difference, anything that makes them unique. And they might even not be able to afford you. So they're constantly pushing you for results. And the entire experience doesn't bring you the accolades and the transformations that you deserve as a smart marketer. So just being able to say no and understanding your sweet spot, your area of genius is a really important insight. I want to ask you about your books. So in Think, Engage, Thrive, Marketing Actions to Skyrocket Your Brand in the Digital Age, you actually offer your insights on what are some of the marketing models that are outdated. The book was published in 2017. If you could wave a magic wand and update it, what would you add to that book?
Well, it's funny because I think I just did that with the new book, which is The Why Behind the Buy, because the new models, I think since 2017, really the model of these old outdated marketing models that people used to follow are totally irrelevant today. And what you really want to do is use the tools that are out there. And I think we live in a much more exciting time where we have these tools called social media and short form video and the ability to connect with customers using social media to break through and come up and really highlight who you are to make that connection with the customer. So I think in a lot of ways, it's easier today to make a connection with the customer, but at the same time, it's harder in the fact that you really have to know who you are and who your customer is and what your point of difference is to be able to make that connection.
You took me to the second book already, and I think that the why behind the buy, connect with the customers before you sell, that's all about the importance of relationships, right? Of understanding and of changing gears from talking and being pretty and dancing to actually listening. And that type of connection is timeless. This is the one book that I think will be long-lived because this will not change as long as humans are buying from humans. This will not change.
Oh, I agree with you. And it's applicable for both the B2B, business to business side, as well as direct to consumer. The problem I see with people trying to sell is the old model doesn't work. People trying to find these, the ones I talked about in the first book in 2017, where you're building an advertising or marketing and you're coming out with your, this is why we're different and this is why you should buy and this is why you should buy. They're not making a connection. It's one-way communication. It's just noise. And in the old days, right, of advertising, they were trying to convince you to sell, to convince you to buy their product by using words. But today, I think the consumer is much more savvy, especially under 45, and they want to know what you're all about. They want to understand what's in it for them. If I buy your product, what's the benefit to me, right? Why should I buy your product? And these guys, and we see it all the time on LinkedIn and we see it all the time in advertising, that guys go straight at it. I can 10x your business tomorrow, or I can help you fill your calendar. But how do I know? I don't know you. I've never spoken to you before. And so you're coming at it totally wrong. That just becomes noise and the conversion rates are extremely low. So you have to be able to tell your customer about yourself, about your brand, about your product, and then what's in it for them and why they should buy it. And you do it in a much better way. And some of the brands that I pointed out, Graza olive oil, Truff hot sauce, and Glossier for beauty products, those guys just did a phenomenal job talking and listening to the customer and understanding how to sell to those customers, but in a more low-key manner, not just in your face, buy my product.
I want to try and pick your brain for the sake of our listeners. If you had to now, for some reason, you end up in a lonely island and you find one business coach, and that business coach is now your only client, and you agree to work with them, what else can you do there? And you only have a very small budget, let's say $10,000 for ad spend. Well, how would you use that money? What would you do? You have to limit yourself to like the most efficient platforms that you could leverage. And it's not an e-com, it's a service, it's a business coach. What would you do?
Yeah. So if I'm a business coach today and I'm trying to get clients, I am going to make a tremendous amount of content. I'm going to take my money and I'm probably going to use 80% of it to develop content, not necessarily just ads, content, short form video, long form video, podcasts, whatever I can do, because I want people to understand who I am, right? A coach is a personal thing. A coach needs to be able to have a connection. People need to feel like they can trust that person, that person's going to give them advice. So to do that, again, we have this power today of doing video, and it's very easy. You can use your phone. You can buy inexpensive cameras. You can do it on your computer half the time. You don't need huge editing skills. We have great AI products that can edit and help us edit and help us make those look professional. So to me, that's the best use of funds, is to say, look, let's figure out what your message is, why that message is different, who your customer is, and let's go out and create content that you're going to target those people with. Yeah, you're going to run some ads, but you're going to use some of the content that you created to be in those ads so that people get a feel for who you are and how you are going to approach their problem and how you're going to solve their problem and help them. It's not about you, it's about them.
Do you see any results as a business owner in your journey from writing and publishing your books? Was there like a strategic result out of that?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's sort of the reason why you write them. I tend to give a lot of my books away to people. I'll send them to people that I think I can help in their company. So I may target 50 or 60 CEOs that I think would benefit from our services, and I'll send them the book. And what the book does is it gives them insight into how I think and the type of person I am. So I go into my history a bit in the books, and I go into use real life examples so they understand that I do happen to know what I'm talking about. I'm not just a guy who wrote a book, and I can help them. And here's how we've helped other people, and here's some examples. And so it gives them, it's like a big calling card. It's like a big card. So yes, I have seen direct results from it. That's the only reason I do it, to be honest.
Do you have any advertising budget for Crunch Growth that you use?
We do a little bit of advertising, but the reality is most of what we do is very highly targeted. So we get in, there are some really good segments of categories that we do really well in. We are extremely knowledgeable and great in food, whether it's snack food, whether it's gourmet food, whatever. We're great at that. We're great at beauty products, and we're great at toys. And those are really the sweet spots for us. And so what we do to get clients is we spend a lot of time looking at companies that are in that range of, say, 5 to 10 million. And then we'll look at what they're doing with ads, and we'll look at how their sales have been. And we do a lot of work ahead of time. And then we'll put something together for them and send it to them and say, look, we think we can help you. And here's how we think we can help you. Here's some of the things we know how to do. And it works pretty well. But advertising, running ads for us, you get a lot of people that aren't necessarily the target that need help. But some of those folks that come in through ads may have a legitimate product, they need some help, and that may transfer over to coaching for us because there are a lot of people out there. We do groups. I do group coaching for startups. So because startup guys don't really have the money for a one-on-one coaching session, but they still need help. And I can offer that help. So I do put together groups for that, and I may lead them into that if it comes through an ad for us. So
I love it. Where can people go and learn more about Crunch Growth and all that you do, Phil Masiello?
Yeah, you can go to crunchgrowth.com and you can see what we do there. You can look at our social media, Crunch Growth. But you can, if you want to know about me, I have my own site called philmasiello.com. Very easy. You could go to, I'm also active on social. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. And so, like I said, I have a TV show that I do every Tuesday at 6 p.m. on E360 TV. It also streams out to YouTube TV, Roku, Fire TV, a whole bunch of places. So I'm pretty easy to find. And I do answer questions. It may take me a day or two, but people send me questions all the time. They contact me. So I'm very open and available.
Thank you so much, Phil Masiello. We'll put all the links on the show notes, including the links to the Amazon books, to the books on Amazon. I want to thank you, everyone, for listening for another episode of Beyond Six Figures. And thank you, Phil Masiello, for taking the time to connect with us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Six Figures. Check out the extended show notes that include bonus material, practical tips, and exclusive resources on our website, zivraviv.com. Until next time, keep dreaming big and pushing your business and your life beyond six figures.